Today I've got a little bit more involved of a project to work on. Sticking with the theme of October, I know it's Halloween everywhere, but really, how could you resist our cute little pumpkin bracelet? We're just using a couple different sizes of seed beads, some Swarovski crystals. This is a great way to sort of get started stitching seed beads if you haven't done it before. Everything here is pretty straightforward, but with any type of seed bead stitching, you're always going to have these moments of like, is this really going the way that it's supposed to? Because sometimes when you first start, things just don't look quite right. But I've laid out all of our materials. We're using 2 colors of size 11 seed beads, some orange size 4 seed beads, a clasp, whichever kind you like is great. Something dark is probably best for this project. Some bicones for embellishment, 2 different sizes here, black ones to put in line with the pumpkins, and then we'll need a needle, some Nymo, and some wax and conditioner for our thread. So I'll start, the very first thing you'll want to do is get some thread. And you're probably going to want, I would say, a good 4 feet will give you a comfortable amount to work with. There's really never too much when you're getting your thread, but the way I see it, it's a lot easier to just use one piece of thread than to add a piece. So you might as well go a little bit long. But if you go too short, we can always add thread if need be. So I'm going to start by waxing my thread. You see it's all curly from coming off this tiny little spool, and what I need to do is get it stretched out, and the wax also protects it a little bit, makes it a little stronger. So I'll just hold it between my thumb and the wax. I'll pull my thread all the way through. I really only wax it once because I don't like wax to build up on here. And then I do the same exact thing with my thread conditioner. This is Thread Heaven. And this just makes it a little bit more supple, keeps it from getting stuck on things because the wax is a little bit sticky. So sometimes it'll bunch up a little bit more than you want it to, but the Thread Heaven keeps everything going super smooth. I forgot to lay out one thing that will be really useful. Some people use a stopper bead on the end when they're stringing a bunch of seed beads, the way I'm going to do in just a moment. But I think a bead stopper, instead of a stopper bead, works a lot better. And at least with the bead stopper, I don't have to worry about it. A stopper bead can get loose. The whole idea is that it's removable, which kind of makes it a little bit scary to me sometimes. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to string up the base row of beads, and then we'll add the pumpkins in a second pass where we stitch back around. So I'm going to start by threading my needle. I'm going to bring my tail a little bit over halfway. You have to keep an eye on it because things start getting annoying if your tail doesn't leave very much working thread here where it's not doubled. You'll start catching your tail in the beads, and that just kind of makes for an annoying process. So the sequence here is going to be placing bicones every few seed beads. So it starts with just 3 of my size 11s here, and then I'm going to string our base row now that we've got our needle threaded on our Nymo that's been waxed and conditioned. And we're going to start with 3 seed beads, and then it becomes a lot easier because it's just going to be bicone, 6 seed beads, bicone, 6 seed beads, and so on. So I'll pick up a bicone, 6 seed beads, and I'm just going to do this until I run out of bicones. almost to the home stretch now. I've got 6 more seed beads, a bicone, and now I'm out of black bicone, so I'm just about ready to put my clasp on. I'm going to pick up 3 size 11 beads here, a 4mm bicone, and then I'm going to pick up, this is where I'm going to attach my clasp, so I will pick up 2 seed beads, stitch through my clasp, one side of it, and 2 more seed beads, and I'm just going to let them string all the way down. Be careful that your clasp doesn't get tangled up. And now what we have to do is we need to reinforce this section. So I'm going to take my needle and go through these seed beads in my clasp again. It seems like you're going to have a loop of thread here, but we're going to pull it tight. So we're going through these beads twice, and it's a lot stronger because remember, this is holding your clasp on. So you really want that to be nice and secure. We've got all 4 seed beads kind of together in a little bit of a square formation now instead of a loop. And then I'm going to stitch back into my Swarovski through some of my seed beads, 3 of them, and my first bicone and 3 more seed beads. So the more you do seed bead stitching, the more steps you can do in one go. But see, sometimes it comes back to bite you because your thread tries to get knotted up here. So thread management is really the key of seed beading in general. Keeping track of all the loops and twists in your thread, being careful not to throw it around like I just did. It happens. It takes practice to really get used to how everything is supposed to feel. Sometimes like your tail will loop around the other side of your thread and it'll seem like a knot, but it's not really a knot. So now I'm coming out in the center of one of my bicone stretches here, or sorry, seed bead stretches. I'm going to get some things out of my way a little bit so that I can show you what I'm doing. I know I'm done with my black size 11 seed beads because I've stitched the whole way through, so I'm really only going to need about 4 more of these. Of course, also note that you absolutely can make this bracelet longer or shorter. I planned for 15 pumpkins. If you made it longer, you might want more pumpkins. You can just keep continuing the same sequence, just add more at the end before you turn to put your clasp on. I'm going to gently untangle my thread, pull my tail a little shorter because now my tail is actually longer than my working thread, which that I do not want. Sometimes it's a little tough when you're twisting and you're turning, so we pull. There we go. Now I have a ton of thread to work with. Fix my tabletop here, and I'm going to flip this because it's easier for me personally as a right-hander to work on the right side of my bracelet. So this next step, we're going to start adding our pumpkins. So we're going to take 1 size 4 bead and 1 size 11 bead, and we'll thread them all the way up to our bracelet. And now is where the real seed bead stitching starts. We are going to skip the green bead, go up through the orange bead, and then we're going to go through our seed beads exactly where we're coming out, but we're just going to keep going forward. We're not going to go backwards towards our clasp. So I'll go through my seed bead, through my size 11 beads, and I'll go through my bicone and 3 more size 11s actually, because that will put me in the next place that I'm going to stitch a pumpkin on. So I hold down right here while I'm pulling my thread. It makes it easier to not get tangled up. Keep your beads where you want them. And now I'm 1 pumpkin in. I'm going to do another shot zoomed in closer so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, a little bit closer look. Time to add another pumpkin. So same as before, orange seed bead, size 4, the size 11 seed bead. String that all the way down. I think it's a little bit easier than having all your thread tangling while you're trying to navigate through your beads. So now we're going to go through our size 4 seed bead and through the 3 seed beads on the other side where we're coming out. Go through our bicone too, see right there, and through 3 more size 11 seed beads. So now I'll hold my finger down on there where my needle is coming through. Pull my needle through slowly. And see how my thread untangles very gently if you go slowly. Don't do any quick tugging. With seed beading, it feels like as soon as you get comfortable and you start to think, sure, I can speed up a little bit, things get a little bit scary, you start getting knots. So it's important to just take deep breaths, make sure you pause if you get frustrated, and never ever tug on anything that is giving you resistance. Because let's say I'm tugging as I'm going back through my seed beads, I could have a knot that's inside of my beads that I can't even see. And then if I tug it, I'm going to pull it harder and I may not be able to get it out. Sometimes with seed beading, if you get a knot in there, there's not a good way to untie it or fix it, and you may end up having to start over. So always just be as calm as you can. I know it's hard when you're learning and you get frustrated. Let's try another pumpkin. Let's get a size 4 seed bead, a green size 11, and stitch it all the way down. Go through my orange seed bead, and then through 3 size 11s, a bicone, and 3 more size 11s. And we just repeat this all the way down until we run out of our pumpkins, and then we'll attach our clasp on the other side, tie a knot, and we'll be all done. See, this happens to me, I think, more than anywhere. I get a loop around a seed bead, and it seems like a knot, but really, if you attack it quite slowly and carefully and deliberately, you'll be all right. See, 3 pumpkins down. Let's go for another. Stitch it all the way down. See, I almost forgot my next step because I started to think, well, we've gotten this far, I'm feeling comfortable. Back through our size 4. So you can let your thread slack a little bit while you're getting your seed beads situated. Sometimes I have to pick them up and split them so I can see what I'm doing. But once my needle is through like this, I want to put my finger here and really watch what's going on with the thread as it pulls up. You see how it likes to twist? That twist is really just recipe for a knot. So keep an eye out when something like that happens. Make sure it's really what you want to happen. We're getting there. Now you want to kind of try and make sure you stay on the one side, but you see that I'm ready to put my very last pumpkin on. I'm going to take my bead stopper and I'm just going to move it out of my way a little bit, putting it down here. I don't want to take it off completely because I'll lose my beads. So I'll pick up my size 4, my green size 11, thread them all the way down and go through pumpkin and all of my size 11 and my bicone that I have left on the other thread. Pull it pretty tight. And now the only thing I have left to do is put my clasp on. We're going to start with the 4mm bicone. I accidentally put every seed bead away. Hello.
It's okay to be parking in here. Oh, okay. I don't know if you need, oh, maybe, no, I don't know.
So this is for your purse.
Remember. Oh, my glasses.
Yes. Very important.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Thank you. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to pick up my bicone. I'm going to pick up 2 size 11 beads, one side of my clasp, and 2 more size 11 beads. I'm going to pull them all the way down to meet everyone else. And then I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other side where I reinforced my clasp by stitching it in a circle. So let me separate these guys out. Go through the size 11, through the clasp, and through the size 11s again, the opposite direction. So my thread was coming out here. I loop around and bring it through to come out in the same spot. And now I'm going to pull everything pretty tight. Grab my clasp. Use it to help me pull. So everything is right up close to each other. And then I can go through my 4mm bicone here. And my favorite thing about this way of beading is now I don't have to tie any weird special knots. I can tie 2 sides of my thread together. Probably the easiest way to finish off a seed bead project. So I cut myself some long tails. I'm just going to go over, under, like you'd start any knot, and pull it all the way tight. And now I'm actually going to put a surgeon's knot in. So if you've done the stretchy bracelets I've shown you, we always tie off with a surgeon's knot. I'm going to go over, under, tuck this tail through the loop one more time, and pull it all the way tight. Make sure that you're staying on the correct side of your bead.